Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me for another Alfred Hitchcock Presents review. Today I will be talking about Season 3, Episode 20, On the Nose, starring Jan Sterling as Fran. And I have to say, this is a very, very solid episode overall, which I enjoyed. It takes an interesting look at a lady who apparently has some gambling issues. And for the most part, it feels pretty realistic, even considering when this episode was made. The ending does slightly undermine the episode, in my opinion, which I will explain when I get there. But overall, this episode features a very good performance from Jan Sterling, who I think is one of the more underappreciated classic actresses, and she really proves it here with an excellent performance. And overall, I just thought this episode was very interesting and well done. So we start with a lady, Fran, our main character, and her husband. And they're talking, and her husband's name is Ed, and he asks her about this watch that she has, and she says it broke and she has to get it fixed. But we'll find out differently very soon. She also tells him she's going to be doing some window shopping that day with a friend, but it turns out we find out that Fran in the past has had some issues gambling money on races, horse races, I believe it is, and her husband suspects that this might be what she's doing now. They get in an argument, and he basically tells her that if Fran keeps gambling, he's going to leave her because he can't put up with this anymore. Even though you can tell that they both seem to sincerely care about each other, which I think really helps the episode along, in my opinion. So we go to the next scene, and Fran is by herself, and her friend Lila arrives. This is the lady she's supposed to go to the track with when her husband leaves. And Fran is very reluctant to go. So surprisingly, she did stay home, which I really didn't expect. But when she puts on the radio, she thinks she gets assigned to bet on a particular horse. I think it's called Pink Angel. But she actually resists to her credit. But then she gets a call from this man, Mr. Cooney, and he's basically saying that she owes some money. He wants to collect her debt. But when he comes to collect, Fran doesn't have enough money, not even close. So Cooney leaves her with like a little bit of money for bus fare and tells her she has till later that day to get the money, or he'll tell her husband and get it from him. So Fran's nervous because she doesn't want her husband to find out for obvious reasons. So she has this plan to pretend that she has no money, and she waits at the bus stop and asks other people for fare. Now, this adds up over time. She is collecting money, although not nearly enough, as we'll find out. One thing I did like about this scene is, although most people were giving Fran money, they did show one lady who didn't give her money, which I thought was a nice little touch that they didn't need to put in there, but I appreciate it. This is realistic. It's not everyone would give money in this situation. I like that. So at this point, Fran still needs quite a bit of money. She goes into this store and decides she's going to steal this compact, which is worth more than the amount she needs. I don't know if she was going to sell this off or give it to Mr. Cooney as part of what she owed or what, but this doesn't last long. She goes outside and gets caught by this man who says he's a police officer, even though I suspected that he might not be, which we'll find out more about. So she tells her story to this guy, and it turns out this man is not an officer, but he says he'll give her a break, he'll give her the money, but he hints that he wants some favors in return. So when he gets a little bit aggressive with Fran, it causes a struggle, which leads to a car accident. It turns out the man is knocked out temporarily, but we find out later that he did not die, which was kind of interesting. So anyway, Fran leaves the scene in a panic. When she gets back home, the police visit her. She says she must have freaked out. That's why she left. It turns out they put the money back in her purse and gave her the compact, thinking these things were hers. Fran gives the compact back, which I thought was a nice touch, showing that she does have some honesty in her. I appreciate that complexity in her character. But now it turns out she keeps the money, and she has the money to pay back Mr. Cooney, who comes back. So she gives him the money and tells him that she's done gambling, but we'll find out that's not true very soon. So at this point, Fran feels better about herself, but then she gets a call from her husband. It turns out he's not coming back home. He's got to go out of town, and you can tell at this point that Fran really cares about him, and I thought Jan Sterling did a great job in this scene. You could just see in her expressions and mannerisms over the phone how she felt, but it turns out Fran still can't help herself, and being all alone, she calls Mr. Cooney and asks him if she can make a bet on a race later that day. Now, I appreciate how realistic this ending feels, that someone might still have the urge to gamble. But the episode makes kind of light of it the way it's done. I wish they would have taken the last scene a little bit more seriously. I thought it undermined the episode slightly, but it doesn't ruin the episode, which is still very thought-provoking and has a very good performance from Jan Sterling. And I'm going to give On the Nose a 3.5 out of 5. Overall, a very solid episode. That's something a little bit different for Alfred Hitchcock Presents, and I do recommend it to fans of the show. So 3.5 out of 5 for On the Nose. And as always, thank you very much for watching.